And we're back again. Time to take another look at the 4Kids Winx dub, everybody. Today we'll be going over episodes 19 and 20, Army of Decay and Sparks of Hope. Things get pretty intense in these episodes, so hope you're ready for some action. As always, if you'd prefer an audio-only version of this video, then check out the It Feels Like Magic podcast. It's available on Spotify, Google, Apple, and it even has its own YouTube channel. So check those out if you're interested. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get into the episode, shall we?
Watch the dub and open my mind. Believe in 4Kids. Time to unwind. Can it be true? Let's wait and see if 4Kids dub can do everything amazing. Rewatching Winx, rewatching Winx, come join the fun. Rewatching Winx, rewatching Winx, rewatching Winx.
Let's have some fun.
Rewatching Winx.
Episode 19, Army of Decay. The Trix use Bloom's powers to take over Cloud Tower and summon an army of dark creatures. Also, Darcy has had enough of Riven and imprisons him. Bloom returns to Alfea and reveals to everyone what happened to her while she was in Gardenia. The Trix plan to use their army to take over Magix and then the entire universe. They start their assault on the two nearby schools, Alfea and Red Fountain. And that's everything you need to know about the episode, so let's dive into these notes of mine, shall we? I think this is the first time this has happened, but the very first line that's spoken is something that made me laugh, and I just had to write it down. So, we start off in Cloud Tower, and we're watching through the perspective of all the witches there. They are just sitting down and eating lunch and talking amongst each other. And one of the witches describes a spell. This spell turns a fairy inside out so that its wings are on the inside. And the witch who explains this just thinks it's hilarious. And then the person that she's telling this to says, "You gotta teach me that one." And that was an extremely morbid way to start up the episode. I think that's more macabre than anything I can think of off the top of my head that I ever heard the witches say in the original version. So hats off to the 4Kids writers, I guess, although it's kind of weird that this is in the 4Kids version, since they normally try to make things family friendly, but that was not a pretty picture. And then the witches at Cloud Tower continue to be pretty darn funny. We hear someone off screen say, "Oh, my darkness, don't look now, but guess who just showed up?" Which was really just funny to me. Not just because of the really over-the-top Valley Girl accent, but just the use of "oh my darkness" since they're witches. Puns are fun when they're taken in this kind of a context. It's funny in an ironic way, and either way, I laughed, so... There's actually a surprising amount of funny lines in this episode considering that it's pretty darn intense. Later on, we get to see the Winx and Bloom is trying to explain what happened, and then Griselda suddenly barges in and wants Bloom to come with her. When Griselda enters, Stella nervously responds, "What up, Miss Chi?" And Griselda's response is being her big and scary self, and then ending her sentence with "What up, Bloom?" in the scariest way I have ever heard that phrase uttered in my entire life. But it was also super funny because of the fact that Griselda, someone so uptight, decided to use that kind of lingo to her advantage in order to scare the girls, and I think it worked. When Bloom is talking to Farragonda about everything that went down in Gardenia when her powers are stolen, the performance was actually really, really good. I totally believed the voice actress and was 100% on board until the writers just completely ruin it with a line that doesn't even seem to fit the lip flaps that much, and it just takes all the seriousness out of it 100%. The line in question is,
"I'm a member of the royal family of Sparks, and that's cool, but I am the last one left."
I have no idea what they thought they needed to shove that in. It honestly doesn't seem to fit the original timing because of how quickly the voice actor has to say the line. And it just completely takes all the seriousness out of it. 100%. I thought, wow, I actually might tear up if this performance continues at first because Bloom sounds like she's on the verge of tears. And it actually sounds believable and realistic at the start of this scene. But then all that emotional buildup and momentum is completely ruined with that one line. So, I guess it's subjective on whether or not that's a good thing. I mean, it is super funny. If you're looking for that super emotionally charged storytelling, then you're probably not going to find it here. Moving ahead a little bit, let's talk about Riven and Darcy. Honestly, I can't quite remember what was going on between the two of them originally. I think it's because it was left super vague. We do see that Darcy does something to Riven at the, the Day of the Rose? So we can assume that she put some sort of spell on him. We don't know exactly what it was. I'm guessing most people assumed that it was a charm so that he'd like her, but it's never 100% confirmed. In this version, we get to see that if it was a spell, then his feelings were actually pretty darn strong, because he visits Cloud Tower with the intention of taking Darcy on a date and seems really upset when Darcy turns on him, which of course he was originally, but before he was like, oh man, they were right. I shouldn't have trusted the Trix. It was more so like a, oh yeah, I guess I was in the wrong. Whereas here, he seems hurt in a romantic sense, whereas if there was any pain originally, I think it's because he wanted to trust in the Trix since he couldn't trust in anyone else, and he couldn't. So that's an interesting addition, considering that everything was so kind of gray and wish-washy before. It wasn't entirely clear what his true feelings towards the Trix were. But here, even if it was a spell, they at least made them loud and clear, so... I was also surprised that they kept in the part where Stormy holds Riven's face and then scratches him with her nail. You can still see the blood and everything. I mean, it's just a tiny scratch, but still, the things that 4Kids has censored and edited in the past would lead me to believe that that isn't something that they'd want to keep. I mean, they edited out the slap that Musa did to Stormy, for crying out loud, but they kept this in, so things are really wish-washy for the 4Kids dub of Winx. Sometimes they're super paranoid about what should and shouldn't be allowed, and other times they take things even farther than the original do, or just leave it in as it was intended, which is really surprising as someone who grew up with the other things that 4Kids has made. I really don't have too much else to say about this episode besides two other lines I thought were funny, because we're kind of at the climax of the season, which does last a while, but it's worth the wait. It's super well paced and enthralling, and I still felt all of that here. I absolutely love the season 1 finale, and I'm so glad that we are at this part in the story. But let's take a little bit of a detour into the funnier parts of the episodes real quick. After the Trix summon their army, which is referred to as the Army of Decay in the 4Kids version, Icy decides to top off this scene by saying, yeah, this is gonna be so awesome. I absolutely love the cheesy dialogue that is in the 4Kids version of Winx Club. It totally sounds like something that little kids would make up when doing make-believe or imagination, when they're trying to sound cool by echoing things that they've heard in pop culture, but doing a poor job of it and just sounding really, really not cool in the process. And it's just super funny because of that vibe that this has. And then lastly, we get to see Red Fountain being attacked, and there's lots of lines that we hear from the specialists here and there that I believe were added in from the 4Kids version. That's something they like to do, is add in lines that happen off screen to make scenes feel more busy. And sometimes that's kind of annoying, but here it works since this is a battle. And one of the lines that caught my attention was someone, I believe it was Dan Green, but I don't know if it was Sky or not, but I'm pretty sure it was him. Anyways, he shouts,
"They're at the West Gate too! And the South!"
and I just found the desperation that was in his voice hilarious, considering that they're a group of soldiers trained for battle, essentially. And I think that's everything for this first episode. It follows everything story-wise to a T for the most part, and really the only thing I had to note was just some funny lines here and there, but it was a very pleasant watch, and a very good start to what's gonna be a many episode long finale for the season. Episode 20, Sparks of Hope. There's only one hope for the magic dimension. Bloom must return to her home planet to help reignite her powers. Red Fountain creates a diversion and draws the enemy towards them to give the Winx a fighting chance. But the specialists aren't able to keep up the fight for very long. They are forced to retreat and make their way to Alfea in order to join forces. Meanwhile, the girls are being chased by a Yeti-like creature. During its attack, Bloom is separated from the group and falls down a chasm. And that's all you need to know about the episode, so let's get into it. Once again, this is a pretty straightforward plot. Things just happen and it is mostly action, so there isn't too much to point out in terms of things that change. However, much like the episode, there were a lot of lines that I found super funny that were nothing like the original dialogue, so let's go through them. First off, there's the Trix trying to bargain with the teachers. One of the conditions Icy is demanding is that the teachers need to stand in front of their students and say, "Icy rules. Icy's the greatest," and then surrender. Once again, this is super, super lame dialogue that I would expect like 6-year-olds to say, but it's because of that it's just hilarious to hear an actual villain say these things out loud. Another thing that I noticed is when Nuts deciding that he's had enough with the Trix. His whole thing is that they want to take over the universe, which includes the Ogre realm. My mom lives there.
Attention everyone! Run for your lives! Robots have taken over the world! Our world!
Which not only is just super funny, but also kind of feeds into the world building. We don't know too much about the other realms in Winx Club. And honestly, I wish we did, and 4Kids does a really good job of just adding in information here and there to make the world feel more complete. I can see people going one way or the other for this, either really liking it or not liking it, and I think both versions are valid, because for the argument against, what right does 4Kids have to pretty much create the Winx Club canon? It's not something they made. But on the other hand, it's just feeding into the love that people have for the series, and they really didn't mean any harm by it at the end of the day. It's not that serious, so you can take it however you want to, but the original version exists on its own already, so I think this is just a fun alternative. There were some cool musical callbacks that happened in this episode as well. During a scene when Farragonda is trying to hype up the girls, she says that an Alfea fairy never gives up, no matter how slim the hope. And while the scene is playing, I believe there is a musical reference to the Alfea school song in the background. I'm pretty sure that's what it was supposed to be, which was a really cute callback. I love when musical scores reference things from the past like that, and this was just done really well, so kudos for that. And then there was another musical callback later when Nut was fighting with the specialists, and it used the same musical theme that we hear when he's fighting against Stella and Gardenia with the brass and flutes and everything. And I complained about that when it first showed up because of how cartoony it kind of was. It was emphasizing like every single step he took, almost like old style cartoons, but it kind of grew on me. I was happy to hear this theme again, and he is like a big oafy ogre, so it makes sense that his music theme would be really out there and kind of distracting. And this was a huge battle, so it made more sense. I'm going to be bouncing around a little bit here, but another thing I noticed musically is Stella solo transformed in this. And I can't remember if this happened already, but when she solo transforms, there's a different version of the transformation song. And I love this version so much. It has like this flute-like synth to it that's really prominent and also really twinkly sounds like glockenspiel or music box, celeste, whatever it is. I'm not sure exactly. Something to that extent. And it's just really cute how they change up the transformation song depending on who's transforming. And honestly, I kind of wish that was something that continued. Moving back, we get another savage line from Palladium. The girls are gearing up for their mission on Sparks and have to dress for the extremely cold weather. And Palladium explains this by saying, "The weather on Sparks is quite brutal, so I'm afraid open-toed shoes and exposed midriffs simply won't do." Which is extra funny to me considering the fact that they kind of follow the rule of cool in Winx Club when it comes to being weather conscious. For example, their Lovix, they have fur on the outfit, but they're still totally exposed everywhere. So it was funny hearing Palladium call them out for not being properly dressed for the elements. And then, of course, Griselda has to add in that if she had it her way, this would be the dress code all year, which is kind of to be expected of her character, and that isn't the case. The girls are free to dress however they want to, so that was just a funny thing to add. I don't know if this was the first appearance of the song, I can't quite remember, but we do get a song in this episode. We hear the song, I think it's called You Can Count on Me, and I thought it was pretty cute, served itself well, I guess. It felt slightly out of place, but I think the lyrics made up for it. I really liked the last line. It says, "United hand in hand, divided we fall, but together we stand," which is just a really cute and heartwarming message, which fits with the girl standing by Bloom when she's really vulnerable. So let's move back to Red Fountain for a bit, shall we? Everyone's trying to get into the spirit of marching off into battle, and they shout a chant, "For honor and the glory of Red Fountain." And right after they say that, and it's actually like a really cool and fun scene, Timmy says in like the goofiest voice ever, "That felt cool." Which I don't even think I need to explain why that's funny. He just feels so out of place in this battle with his voice because he sounds like, I don't know, like a combination of Mickey Mouse and Goofy. And in this context, it's just super funny to see him talking like that when he's fighting up against this really like creepy and humongous army of dark creatures. Also, this scene was kind of grim. Saladin says that everyone who survives this battle will pass the semester, which, you know, makes sense. If they do well in battle, then they should pass the semester. But that means that 4Kids is acknowledging that people are going to die, which once again is really, really surprising, especially considering they created the Shadow Realm in Yu-Gi-Oh! Just to avoid the idea of people dying.
You know, the Shadow Realm. The big, purpley, cloudy place that you go to when something really bad happens to you.
I think you're talking about hell.
No, it's the Shadow Realm.
Yet here, it's very clear that that is a possibility, so I just found that really weird, but it sets up the scene well. And then before we wrap up with the specialist, I also found it funny that there was one student who had like a really redneck accent, which is something that you never expect to hear in a super intense dark fantasy battle. Yeah, it's exactly like how you'd expect. It's hilarious. Oh, I lied. I have one more thing to mention about the specialists. When they go to help Alfea, we see their aircraft land. And they added in dialogue here, and the dialogue is, "All right, guys, try your best to stand tall. We don't want to look like a bunch of losers in front of these girls." Which, take it as you will, is still just super unexpected and kind of fits with the vibe that they're trying to give with the specialist. I don't think that's something that would necessarily be written today. But once again, it feels like something that little children would say, like when they're in that boys versus girls mentality, which just makes it really funny hearing from a grown adult, essentially. They're still kind of young, but you get what I mean. And I think that's actually pretty much everything I have to say about the episode. The only other thing I wrote down is that once again, there was a good scream when Bloom fell into that chasm. It was a little bit weird, but who wouldn't sound weird when they're falling, presumably to their death? So yeah, these were 2 really good episodes. There really wasn't too much that was changed. It pretty much was copy and paste, plot-wise at least, from the original. But there were some really funny lines added in, and the music was also different and had some cool callbacks to earlier in the series. And yeah, really enjoyed watching once again, and I'm looking forward to continuing the rest of this season 1 finale. We're gonna be in it for the long haul because I think it's like a 5 to 6 episode finale, but it doesn't feel overstretched or anything, so it's gonna be a good ride. And that'll be all for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then please subscribe so you can join me for the journey to come. And if you'd like to support the channel, then check out my Patreon. Each patron gets a cute digital animated sticker I made, as well as access to other rewards like early video access, and access to videos of mine that aren't on YouTube anymore. Before I sign off here, I'd like to thank my patrons real quick. A big thanks to Toddy Fantasy. I know life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, but as always, I hope I'm able to bring a little bit of positivity your way. I'll see you guys in the next one, and don't forget to keep a little magic in your life.